So, good day, everybody. My name is Brian Mitchum. I'm one of the partners, along with Scott Eicholt, in F1 Agronomy, operating primarily out of Van Wert, Ohio, in a very windy Friday morning, following a period of time where we've had somewhere between 3.5 to 4 inches of rain over a period of 4 to 5 days. We're here on a Friday. The rain ended on Tuesday, so we're about 3 to 4 days after the rain ended. The last shower was about 1.5 inches, 1.8 for people. So we've experienced some saturated soil, some ponding, and we're here to talk today about what's going on with seeds, corn and beans, and some stand establishment, and some issues and questions you might be asking right now. So the first thing to talk about is the process that we go through with the seed, how the germination process occurs. So all seeds need three things in order to germinate and grow. They need an adequate temperature, they need adequate moisture, and they need oxygen in the soil in order to start the process. Typically for us, we have ample soil moisture most of the time to get seeds germinated. It's rare conditions where we're so dry that can be a challenge. Once the process starts, once the water goes into that seed and starts the process, it can only go forward. If anything interrupts the germination process of drying out or insect feeding or flooding, that seed will die if it cannot complete the process. There is no resurrection growing after that standpoint. So with the conditions we've had, the rain lasted long enough to where we had saturated soil conditions at least 24 hours across most fields, where it was a little heavier, 48 up to 72, and in some rare cases on real low spots, we've still got water standing in some fields. So the impact of saturated soil is when the water goes in, the oxygen comes out or the air comes out. It's a dynamic process of air and water always moving in and out of the soil. So when we lose the oxygen, that's the process of the seed growing. Without the oxygen, it has to stop until oxygen can come back in the soil. The problem is that the seed is a living organism that has to only go forward. So when it doesn't have oxygen, the loss of the stand comes from carbon dioxide buildup in the soil and the lack of oxygen. Then ironically, when we have plants that are larger and we have standing water, the roots can't even take in water. They actually die from drought. It's kind of an odd thing with excess water when plants are up. But what we've got here, we've got some plants. We're in a field that's been planted now about 7 days. So it was literally as close to the bad weather as you can get. And typically with most stand establishments, the closer you plant to the weather event, the more impact the weather event has on seed. The further away, the bigger the stand. So we do not have emergence above ground yet after 7 days, because in addition to the water, we have been extremely cool. Our overnight last night was 36, 37 degrees. So we're very cool out here today. We just have not had heat units for the week, and that actually is a benefit for us because the survivability of seed will benefit when soils are cooler, because it actually slows that process down like being in a refrigerator, so the tissues don't break down as fast. So we've got here, Doug, some plants. We'll just start with the soybeans, and again, these are very much underground, and we did some damage with it digging it up. But as we look at this, everything we're digging in this field right now is healthy. I don't see any damage, any tissue that's decaying or losing anything at all. The cotyledons are healthy. The tissue is all yellow and healthy, being underground. So right now, these plants are still able to grow and develop, even though they've been in the ground for quite a while. So as we know with the beans are dicot, so it has two sides to the cotyledon, and this is the seed, and then your first root systems, your radicle comes out, and then actually establishes the root, and then the cotyledon is obviously pulled up out of the soil at that time. So we look very promising here right now, and the development out here is very good. And if we had a couple good days and got some warmth back in the soil, limited crusting, we would see these beans be above ground within between 48 and 72 hours. So they're doing quite well right now. A comment about crusting now. As beans have to pull these cotyledons up through the soil with that neck, that can obviously be sensitive tissue, and at times we have heavy crust and it's very difficult to pull that seed through. In this case, we have a beautiful population here of these beans that's going to help each other push. That may or may not be the case in everywhere, but if one of these individual sides of the bean, the dicot of the bean, the two sides, if one of these breaks off and doesn't make it out of the soil, that plant loses all the nutrients, all the carbohydrates and protein that's in that seed. So it does have an impact of about 5 to 8% yield right there if you had this happen everywhere. If you lose both cotyledons off of it, the bean can still survive, but yield loss is about 10 to 12%. Now the corn here in this field, again, was planted the same day, side by side, and what we're finding in the corn again is right now everything we're digging in this field is healthy, because we did not have saturated conditions on this particular field that were much longer than 24 hours. So with that being said, we should have pretty good seedling survivability. Now the corn plant's a little different than beans. Corn's a monocot, so it only has one leaf. But the tissue's coming out. You know, we've got our radical root system coming out first. Now we've got our coleoptile forming. This is a hard, stiff structure, pointed, that's able to helps to penetrate dirt and make its way out. One thing you'll notice is you see one of these plants is kind of coming up pretty straight, the other one's kind of curled. That's just orientation of how it fell into the seed trench. If we had an ideal way of doing this, we would love to be able to orient seed one direction for consistency, but that's not possible. So as we know, with stand establishment, we'd like things to be as uniform as possible, especially with corn. It's one of the unfortunate parts of a microclimate in soils. As we go through every field, these seedlings are side by side, but there are probably 12 to 14 hours development differential in how these plants are going to emerge. You can see that right now. That's not bad, but when we get out to seeds competing against each other up and down the row, that's much longer than 24 hours apart. That's where we'll see a little bit of yield loss come in, as those seeds take a little bit longer to get out of the ground. It's just part of having some bad conditions in soil, and every field's going to have a microclimate, different soil levels, different temperatures, different soil types. Everything is impactful at this point. While we're here, we got a few tools in the field here I want to talk about. I like these what they call trakes. couple things with it. You can, as you're digging, you can kind of pull through the soil really easy with that end, you know. And if you want to get your seedling out, you've got ability to pull out. They're really well made, tough units. You got a little measuring device in it, but these things are actually pretty darn nice, and they're kind of hard to lose in the field too. That's always something nice. A tape measure, of course, to count stand. In 30-inch row corn, to lay the tape out to count your stand, you're looking at 209 inches, 17 feet 5 inches in 30-inch rows. If your row orientation is different, as example in beans, since these are planted in 15-inch rows, you have to double that length in 15 versus 30 because you don't have the width. So that gets a little impractical to lay a tape out, you know, 35 feet to scout a row of beans. So the simple thing, if you want to do with a tape measure, you still do the 209 inches, but you count 2 rows of beans. You're counting 30 inches of beans. It's the same thing as 1 30-inch row of corn. What I like to use is a hoop designed for a 10 multiplier, and this is just a tube that I put together from 3/4 inch plastic that's flexible, together with some clamps, and this is 89 inches of hose, and this represents a 10 multiplier. So if I tossed it out like that, and I counted beans, as we've dug 1 row here out, and you know, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 beans there, assuming this row is going to have the same 8 and 8, that's 16 beans within this hoop area. Multiply that by 10, that's 160,000 plants. So more than adequate stand. So kind of good tools to have, and I like these because, again, another thing too, if even on a windy day it's heavy enough, you'll get some movement in it. Whereas the hula hoops that people tell you to get, you know, they're different lengths and you got to do all kinds of math. We like simple. 10's an easy figure to work off of in this. So